Looks like we've gone live. So I've been doing these live streams this last week or so. The story behind this is uh, my coach. So Adam, I'm working with Adam Urbanski and love him to death. I've gotten a ton of value, and I think that there's a lot of good things I can say about Adam and Bo and the whole team there with RRI. But the probably the most important and most valuable thing I can say to you guys to know about Adam is that I'm back, and many of his clients, they keep coming back to Adam. And I think that's probably the best measure of when you're working with someone, coaching, consulting, working with somebody else on the outside, fresh eyes on your business to help you grow. One of the best indications when you see people repeatedly coming back to work with something, I think it says everything you need to know about that relationship. So about Adam is he's challenged us, the group that I'm working with, to teach more, pay it back, pay it forward, like give more value and impact more people as part of the strategy to also grow our business, but just be willing to put it out there and help people first. So the last couple, I've done a couple of these in the last week, and they're a little informal. I don't know if you guys like them. I don't know if it's a little weird. They're kind of like over-the-shoulder work sessions. So it's work that I have to do anyways. I figured I would just let you guys, whether you catch some of this live or catch it on the replay. Is this helpful? I don't know, but I'm willing to share, and I'm also fulfilling my obligation to teach more, to pay it back. So a couple things that I want to share. So the topic for today, let me pull this up on the screen so you guys can see what I'm going to do. No, let's do this. No, let's do this. There we go. So I'm still on the screen, but I wanted you guys to see what I'm sharing here. So I'm going to do an outline of being easy to refer. Let's actually change this. So this is like a working session where I'm building an outline, right? Being easier to refer. Now, the first thing I want to say about this is you guys have to suffer through me with my spelling and my typing, actually. I make a lot of typos, but I try to correct them as I go. When it comes to referrals, everyone seems to be talking about asking for referrals. Have you seen this? What I mean by this is it seems like everyone, their strategy around referrals is they're going to, everyone they run into, they're going to say, so who do you know that needs this thing that's related to what I do? Or who do you know that matches this or matches that, this criteria? And everyone's focused on asking for referrals. I'm not going to tackle that today, either as a topic or even throw rocks at it. I'm just going to say that the focus of what I want to talk about is being easier to refer. It's like the other side of the coin, and probably, in my mind, more important. The reason I say that is we have, on LinkedIn, we're running the Expert Referral Network. So in that group, there's I think we're almost at 500. I'm going to say, we'll say almost, because I don't want to be wrong on this. Almost 500 members. All experts, coaches, consultants, what else? We've got agency owners, we've got authors, podcasters. So we've got all these people in there, and to be very honest with you, I love you guys to death, but you're not always the easiest people to refer. And the reason I say that is because we've got a lot of people, you can imagine, with a group, and it's growing, right? I think we've got something pretty cool there, because we went from 0 to 500 fairly quickly, and I expect the growth to 1,000 or even 5,000 is going to be even, the pace is picking up the way we're doing it. And we wanted to create something cool. We wanted to create, the value proposition. Proposition of earn is referrals. That's in the name. And recognition. And I always include that second part because it's the familiarity with one another that really matters. You don't refer to people you don't know, and you don't tell your friends about someone that you don't really know the value either. So the recognition actually has to come before the referrals. So I wanted to get that in there. And then the other thing I wanted to say, again, our members, I love you guys to death, but we've really got to get better at being easier to refer, because some of you are not that easy right now. And that's what I'm going to be talking about as a topic today. The other thing I want to say is that because of the work that I do outreach daily. That means that I'm talking to a dozen or more people each day. It's just a working habit that I've made. I do this because it's the process that I teach. Program used to be called, I guess technically it still is, Conversations at Scale, but the informal name that we call it is tapping. Like tap someone on the shoulder and start a conversation with them, right? So I'm talking with, a dozen people each day, and I don't know I haven't looked at the numbers recently. I would say that I average like a referral and a half a day, where I'm introducing one person or more a day. Actually, maybe even two. It's a pretty big chunk of what I'm all the time connecting other people. So I think I'm a pretty good source to talk about this topic because I'm actually walking the walk. I'm actually making referrals from one person to another on a daily basis. So that's why I wanted to dig into this. Next thing I want to talk about, actually, let's do this. We'll call this setting the stage. And we'll get this out of the way. You'll see what I'm doing in a minute. This, by the way, I'm using a little website called Workflow. It's just been really useful to sort of organize my notes this way. So we'll call this one being easier to refer. This is the topic that we're actually talking about. But now I can close up and get all that other stuff out of the way. So being easier to refer, the first thing that I want to share is the importance of being available, which means open to conversations. Some of you guys probably heard me rant a week ago about some of the folks who are out there saying, "Yeah, I don't have time. I don't want to talk to people who aren't qualified to buy from me. I only want red hot clients, customers dropped in my lap." Well, it's great in theory. I don't know if things work that way. I think you have to be willing to talk to people, and that means being available for these conversations. If you're hiding behind your marketing, your funnels, your blog posts, if you're never having those one-to-one conversations, that's where business happens. Like, people meet, they get a sense of one another, they decide whether they're comfortable with it, and that's where those decisions are made. Like, you might be intrigued after you watch a webinar or digest some content from somebody and say, this is kind of my kind of person. I can imagine working with this person. But the decision happens in those conversations, at least at this higher client level. Maybe if you're going to buy $100 product or something like that, you're a customer of a company. That's a little bit different. I'm talking about people that are, spending $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 or more to significantly change their business, impact their life, their family, all that. Like, those decisions are not made lightly. So you got to be available. Let's just call that, be available for conversations. Be available and open to conversations. And the second part was, what did I want to say? Be vulnerable. this one might surprise some people, but I think you got to be, what I really mean is being authentic and real. And the reason why I added this in there is because every once in a while I'll run into folks and so I'll sort of talk with them and, they'll say, yeah, business is awesome. It's going great. I've got all the clients I need and da, 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 da. They paint such a picture like they're, I've never heard of them, but apparently they're winning in a big way. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm not sure what we're talking about here. Right? Like they've got the world by the short hairs, so much so that you wonder, why are we even talking, right? So if you've got to be open and vulnerable. None of us are perfect. We all have hitches in our swing. To use a sports analogy, there's places where we're not as strong as we could or need to be. And I think those make for the most interesting conversations, because that's when we get real and raw with people. And it doesn't happen in your first casual conversation, but it's where real relationships are built. So you got to be available and you got to be vulnerable with people. They've got to get that sense that you are a real person. You're not perfect, and you're not projecting or trying to put out that you are, because if you are, it's a little off-putting to people, and that makes you hard to refer as well. So the next thing I want to say is, what did we have? Hang your hat on one thing. Now, listen, I get it. There's a lot of people that are going to say, well, I do 5 different things, or I have 3 different, I work with 3 different avatars in my business, 3 different types of people who buy in my business. I get it. I get that. But specifically from a referral perspective, when you meet people, they have to remember something about you. And if you're trying to convince them of 2 or 3 different things that you do, it's just more information than they're going to carry away with them. So, for example, one of the referrals I met the other day, I'll give you a couple examples. So I met someone who does a podcast and specifically talks to developers. Like, they're all about the developer, computer programmers, that world. That's who they're talking to. That's what they're tapped into. That's what they're focused on. It was one thing. It was really easy for me to remember, and I've made several referrals to her since. So when you can nail that one thing in a memorable way, it's so much easier for people to sort of remember that and be able to send someone your way. I also want to add, and this is the marketing side of me speaking, but if you can say, that you are the only one who does blank, or the first to do blank. Those are also 2 great statements from a marketing perspective that set you apart from the crowd. It's hard to do, and there's a lot of businesses out there that, this, like, if you're competing in a commodity space, it'll be that much harder. But look for any angle that you can do where you can make that statement. We're the only one who does this. Even if it's not the most material thing in your business, if it's memorable, it's going to set you apart and make it easier for people to talk about you, easier to share. Next thing. Tell others the trigger to watch or listen for. So what I mean by that is, what is the thing that they can see in another person, hear in a conversation with another person, or watch for in their world that would tell them that you are the right person they should be talking to. Now, this is a big one. This is what I meant about even within our referral group, we've got a lot of folks who are really hard to refer, because they're using language like, well, I'm a life coach, or I'm a growth strategist for a business. Okay, I got it. I've worked with both. I know those spaces a little bit. There's a lot of providers in that area. So how are you different? Like, why you and why not 100 other people that also claim those titles? And so, for example, with a growth strategist, they'll say things like, I help people get unstuck in their business. They're at $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, and they want to be at 50,000. I help them get unstuck. Okay. Again, you're still swimming in a crowd of other people, and the water's splashing and the arms are flying, and you can see heads and arms, and I can't tell which one you are and why they should choose you instead of someone else. So what is the trigger? The trigger is that specific thing that someone says, you know what? I know someone you should be talking to. And listen, there's a little work. You got to step back. The best thing I've found is to go for a long walk and just think about this, like kind of chew on it and think about how you can separate yourself from the crowd with answers to these kind of questions, because it's unique for each of us. One thing, so just like up above, I said, let's do this way. Let's say, be the only one who does, or the first, right? I gave you two options, only or first. For the trigger, there's also two options. You could say, you could tell a story about one of your clients. And this is, you want to be strategic here. Strategic in picking the right one. You want to pick a story about one of your clients. Specifically, you want to pick a client that you're working with, that you can tell their story. Yeah, I met, so-and-so, and when I first met them, they were really in a bad place because of these things. And so we looked at it and we started doing this. We put this change in place, and now they're in this different place. That's the kind of story that others will hear that, and they will be able to project themselves into the story. If it's a fit, they'll say, yeah, I'm kind of like that too. Or, my brother-in-law had that same problem. And now all of a sudden that story makes it easier to introduce two people that should be talking. The other thing, so story is one. I'm going to boldface some of these, because I think like be the only, be the first, tell a story. And then the other one, obviously, is if you've got stellar results, share those, because stellar results are also one of those things that people remember about you. So if you can hang your hat on a number that was like, whoa, that's pretty darn cool. People will remember that. It kind of sticks in their mind. And I'll give you an example. So one of my business partners, Caitlin, was talking about the I don't remember the exact period. I think it was from like 2013 through 2019, but they had produced over $10 million in new business for clients. Well, $10 million, that's a big number. So that was memorable to me. That's a stellar result that she can talk about. And now I'm telling you guys, the fact that I remember that and can share it with you is an example. I've also done the same thing with Janet, another one of my partners, because she tells a story about how she sold Alex Mendozian's 100K program. Alex, if you guys don't know, Alex Mendozian is like the old guard of internet marketing. Like he was, a lot of what we do today came from folks like Alex that taught it first. And Alex had a program, one was 30K, one was like 60K. I don't remember the exact details, but Janet was on the sales team selling those programs. And Alex said, well, I also have a 100K program, but nobody can sell this except me, until Janet went out and sold a couple of them, right after that, rising up to that challenge. In many ways, sometimes when it's structured the right way, other people can sell our programs better than we can, because they can say things about us that we can't say about ourselves. Again, why referrals can be so powerful. So stellar results, make it easy to share those. One thing that I'm really liking, and I've been trying to figure out how to do this, I want to integrate this. Now, the expert referral network is not our business. I want to be clear with that. So I always try to share a lot of value with and for them. At the same time, I have to be a little bit guarded, because that's not where our bread is buttered. But one thing I'm really interested for that group of people is figuring out how I can help them create one-pagers, like a one-page summary. You could have results. You could have process diagram. So Adam King, who has the Catching Clients podcast, has a really great diagram on his website. And it, like in a few seconds, you get a sense of who he is and what he's doing and where you might fit into that world. So I think having a diagram, a signature diagram that explains your process is a really good way to do this. I'm not a huge fan of testimonials, because a testimonial is sort of, hey, I love, Billy Joe Go Bob because they're awesome. It doesn't, it's just someone raving about another person. There's not a lot of substance there. I don't like testimonials. I love case studies. Case studies are when someone says, this person entered the picture here, they had this problem, these are the changes or the implementations that we made, these were the results they got. It's the story arc, before, middle, and end of the story. And when you do it in that form, other people, it becomes very effective for them to sort of see where they fit in that world. So I'm very interested. And by the way, if there's anyone out there that does this as a product or service, I'd love to introduce you to our people. I think it's copywriting and a little bit of design, but if you can help people create a one-pager that's a really good, succinct way of explaining who you are, what you do, and why, most importantly, why people should care. Let's add that in there. Who you are, because that does matter. Like, people either connect with you or they don't, and not everyone is going to be your customer or your client, and that's okay. What you do, why they, actually, let's say why we should care. And that last one I will boldface because it's the most important. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, because we've got to wrap up here and I've gone a little bit longer than I planned, was how to make strategic introductions. Bear with me for 1 second. I want to jump back over to my software. Yeah, no one's commenting. So I can't always tell when I'm on my screen doing the outlines. I can't always tell for sure if someone has left a comment or whatever. We're streaming. We're on Facebook in a couple places. We're on YouTube, on LinkedIn, live streaming to all four at the same time. So making strategic introductions. This is something that we talk about on our team quite a bit, because what a lot of people do, let's call this the mistake, is they just introduce two people, say, hey, you guys should know each other, and then walk away. That's how not to do a strategic. That is not a strategic introduction. It's an introduction, but it's not how you should do it. The right way is to, first of all, point out the, what do I want to say? The awesomeness of each person. So if you're introducing two people, say something about each person that speaks to their awesomeness, because it makes them feel great, right? Again, we can brag about others in a way that we can never brag about ourselves. So point out that awesomeness, because not only does the person who hears that being said feel really good and warm about you, but it also lets the other person, we're making them easier to remember, more memorable, right? So point out the awesomeness of each person, right? And there's two. I'm assuming this is a three-way conversation. This is how I do it on LinkedIn. I open up a message. I do it on Facebook as well. I open up a message and I send a three-way message. So it's me and person A and person B, and I'm introducing person A to person B. And usually I'll write something like the first line of my message will be person A, that's their name, and then I'll do this little sign, the arrows going the other way, person B. I don't know where I got that. I saw it somewhere along the line. It's shorthand for, hey, meet this person, introducing the two people. But that's just what I've adopted for mine. So point out what is awesome about each person, and then the second part of it. It's only a 1-2 step formula. It's really basic here, right? The second part is give context for why they should meet. So, hey, I want to bring the two of you together because person A is doing this really cool podcast. I've been listening to it. I love it. And the format is really unique. It's actually a short form. When everyone else is doing long form, this is like a really short form podcast. So I get a lot of value, but I get it in a small package. And so I love that. And, for person B, I think you would really get value. Maybe you could even be a guest or bring some other, you guys should be talking because there's an overlap of the work you're doing here. Could be about guesting, could be about just them being a listener. Whatever it is, you're bringing two people and it's answering this why question. Awesomeness. I said we would highlight the important stuff. So just looking back through my notes to see, I think that's pretty good for now for what I wanted to cover. Listen, I would love for any of you guys, if you have questions, if this is this. I'd love if you guys have questions. Oh, hey, there's Patty just left a comment. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate that. When I get stuck on my outline view there, I don't always see the comments coming in. So I appreciate you, Patty, and hope whether you pick this up live or in the replay, hope some of this is valuable. Again, just going back to how I started out, this is, the Teach More Challenge. Adam challenged us to teach more, make a bigger impact on more people, because each of us can only work with so many folks at one time. But if you can put more value out there for folks, they'll get to know you. That's a good byproduct of this, but you're really going to impact more people as well. So hopefully you found this valuable. If you did, I did a couple others. I did one earlier this week and one last week as well, where I shared some similar information. And really what I'm doing is creating some outlines because I've got some work to do, and the outlines will help me create the product or the trainings that we're doing with clients. And I'm doing it in the wild here, right? With no safety net underneath. That's why it's a little rough around the edges, but thought you guys might appreciate it. So talk with you soon.